Hey guys, how goes it? This is Spike, and this episode is brought to you by White Zombie on tour now. They're gonna be like the biggest fucking band in the world, so check them out. Anyway, I want to talk about the complex subject, which is Ghost in the Shell, but I'm not talking about, the meaning, the philosophical issues with it. I want to talk about the franchise in general and the criticism I've seen of the movie, which I'm not saying the movie is the best thing in the world. It certainly has its flaws. It's a decent film and people are entitled to like it or not to like it. But I've seen arguments like that I cannot endorse as a criticism because I know they are devoid of context and I know they are devoid of a lot of things. Like I do think not all movie critics can criticize, comic book movies and stuff like that because the subject matter is very niche. Just like in literature, sci-fi, like most people in literature do not read sci-fi, so they always go for some aspects that they try to find that like the common ground between fucking Ulysses or In Search of Lost Time or whatever in uh, in stuff that does it's devoid of that because that's not the fucking intention. The thing I want to point out mostly is the specialized criticism I've seen, which I think is very flimsy. And this, it's not a calling out. I actually like the guy's channel. I'm subscribed to the guy's channel, but I think it was like a very fanboy, very cheap move, very beneath him. I'm talking about Digibro and his video Ghost in the Shell trailer sucks because first and foremost you haven't watched the fucking film, and I usually try to watch films at least twice before making a review because I did have some journalism classes and I did study literature and I know what it takes to make an actual criticism of a piece. Yeah, I also many of you know was a musician and I basically went to fucking art college for a long fucking time. But anyway, uh, I want to start with a complex thing, which is the context of Ghost in the Shell, which will make my point, further down. It will help me make that point anyway. First and foremost, we're going to start at the beginning, which is in the 1940s. 1940s. Yes, you heard right. Because the concept of, the soul of a new machine is not new. And yes, that's a fucking Fear Factory reference, and that's what I would have called Ghost in the Shell if I was a translator. Because maybe the poetic device works in Japan, but I don't think it does the trick in fucking America. I think a lot of people are confused with that fucking name, and it just lends itself to lousy translations over that Ghost in the Shell name. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. The thing is, Isaac Asimov and even comic book characters like the Vision were from the 40s, and they already presented this idea of what makes a human. If the conscience the thing that makes us humans, and if a robot has conscience, is it a human? What's the line or the divide amongst more fucking things, because it's in both in sci-fi and in Ghost in the Shell, it's not like a very clear line between the sci-fi ideas and philosophical ideas, or however you call it. I'm Mexican, part of my English. The thing is, it all starts there, and there has been a lot of criticism because it's not as original as the OVAs or the manga. They weren't either. I would even argue Philip K. Dick's book wasn't either. It was good, and it actually added to the. I'm talking about Do Android's Dream of Electric Sheep, which was what Blade Runner is based upon, loosely based. Anyway, yeah. It wasn't that original. It just polished the idea, and it ran with it. And I think Ghost in the Shell did the same thing on the anime side. We're gonna jump. Well, we already established that there are precedents even to Philip K. Dick's story, which was the grounds upon where Blade Runner was made, and it turned, this idea of this sci-fi world and, the fucking goddamn shit into more of an action-oriented noir that takes from the second part of the K. story, which is actually Blade Runner. But anyway, we have Blade Runner, and that period in sci-fi films, which is not only Blade Runner. We have like fucking aliens, and we even have like fucking Star Wars going on. I know it's not really sci-fi, but and that brings us to the original Ghost in the Shell, which is contrary to the popular belief, it's a light-hearted scenery and very with a lot of the manga tropes. It's very light-hearted. It paints a very 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 vast and technically accurate and very prospective, very sci-fi-ish picture, but it does it at the expense of the drama of the story, at the complexity of the story, because this is, as good as it is, it's not complex. I'm going to tell you why. I think this is not as complex as you want to make it sound to be. Because it only tells us ideas we've already read in books like The Third Wave. Okay? I mean, maybe your generation doesn't know that fucking book, but it was very popular back in the day. And it also brings me to my second point, which will take me to the next step, which is, now we're gonna talk about the history of manga and anime in North America. Because a lot of people, I hear this argument that it wasn't until Dragon Ball Z and Evangelion and Ghost in the Shell that anime was considered something in North America, which I would actually demonstrate is wrong, not only from experience, but my experience as far back as I can remember in the 80s, there was already fucking anime all around fucking TV. The thing is, we didn't actually make a divide between cartooning, Western cartooning and anime. It was the same thing. Like you could watch like Jack Kirby's Fantastic Four, Hanna-Barbera version next to fucking Astro Boy at the same time. And you wouldn't say like, oh, this one is manga, this one is anime, and this one is just Western cartooning. You wouldn't make the difference. And the otaku thing, the weirdo thing, actually didn't exist like until the 21st century. Like, I know in Japan, in Mexico we use the word otaku like they use in Japan, which basically means nerd. But even back in the day, where all the rage was comic books, it was known and it was practiced. I'm not even talking about fucking anime. This is Wizard, which I've been collecting, which I used to collect since like 93 to like 99 when I was a teenager. This had magazine, and these magazines with magazine actually predate fucking Dragon Ball, Evangelion, and Ghost in the Shell. So much that we have this one. I think it was even predating the thing is, I put these first ones, these magazine first ones, because they talk about what really made, like, what was truly the big anime, what made anime big and followed in North America, which was Robotech. Robotech was like at the forefront with all those fucking toy cartoons like, Voltron or He-Man or Thundercats. That was what so fucking mainstream. It was like, right now talking about the Avengers. So fucking mainstream, it was everywhere. You could find the fucking figures anywhere. And I'm talking about North America, not Japan, not North America. You could watch it on TV. You could fucking get the we used to call them fucking comics, but the manga, whatever. This is how I heard about Ghost in the Shell actually. In this fucking, as you can see, Robotech still fucking making an appearance, because it's actually fucking predates, uh, you know, the Dragon Ball Z and Evangelion in America. This talks about Ghost in the Shell. Ghost in the Shell is currently touring the US in hopes of bringing anime to the media forefront, even though it was already in the fucking forefront, and this was especially for grown-ups, even though most edgy kids, most the cynics of my day and age, we just got like a fucking bootleg version, or well, for me, like Tower Records would sell the fucking thing and they wouldn't even ask you. Like they thought that it was a fucking anime or something. They would say, like, they wouldn't even ask. That's how I saw a lot of things. Like, I remember when I was 12 and I bought Basic Instinct. I was a big fucking Sharon Stone fan. But yeah, Ghost in the Shell is currently appearing in theaters across country for a limited time. So there's that, and this actually predates your fucking boom. And most of these fucking taco can't shut up about fucking Robotech. And I remember when I was in elementary school watching fucking Robotech and being like, oh, this is so fucking cool. I just remember, and I'm talking, like, fuck, I'm talking about 89, 90. That far back, and it was not just a Mexico thing, even though you could argue that we got a lot of the anime from Spain in tapes that were already dubbed into Spanish. But I know there were a lot of fanzines around, even in North America, in the US and Canada part. Dragon Ball Z, and it made its rounds. A lot of stuff was popular, even like Saint Seiya and stuff. Yeah, this was like it was like a big fucking deal, because it was mind blowing. In a sense, it was mind blowing because, as you know, it actually takes a little from the fucking manga, the first OVA, the one that's been called Revolutionary. It certainly was. It blew people's mind in the sense that it was a very visually, it had like no comparison. Like it brought the thing, what Akira had already done, and just ran with it, and it was beautiful. But it was very flat as well, drama wise and story wise. It wasn't. I would actually argue Blade Runner suffers a little from the same. That people think because something's slow, it's deep and profound, and it's not really true. Which they have nice things to work with, but they are more style than depth. That's my like this. You have like a big fucking adventure with very violent imagery, and with a lot of action, and with fucking hot girl that actually was naked, and we're fucking kids and we had never seen anything like that. Like, and it was also at the same time that we had like, well, heavy metal was struggling back in that day, but we had like Ian Fox also kicking butt in that sense, in that same cyberpunk thing that was very in. And I'm not talking about cartooning, it was all over. Like, even in fucking music, you had like Nine Inch Nails and Ministry and KMFDM going harsher and punkier and stuff, and more metal. The cyberpunk look and everything was pretty much, it existed like from Ian Gibson or whatever, but it really became a thing, like a very like a scene. Let's call it a scene. It became like a scene instead of just like a couple of loose things in the early 90s. In the first half of the 90s, it became a thing, and that's part of Ghost in the Shell's appeal. And Even if you watch fucking, if you like fucking industrial music, you watch KMFDM, and they were all about the animations, and they have, I don't remember what anime it was, but Juke Joint Jezebel was a video with fucking anime, and it fucking predates Dragon Ball Z, and you know, all this stuff. And I also show this to make some point, because you all say like it was all the rage. It was talked about, yeah, it was big, and you can see it was a fucking mainstream uh, magazine. It was so mainstream, like, for example, when we talk about video games, Mexico had its own magazine, and the United States had, you know, Nintendo Power. We have Club Nintendo. But when it came about comics, everything was fucking direct market, basically. And this was so in. I actually have like a fucking collection spanning from years that I bought at, you know, coffee shops next to my school, or you know, the comic book store, or whatever. It was like Ghost in the Shell was so fucking big already. There was a disposition for anime. Front cover, special feature, motherfucker. And this goes to the point. This is specialized media. Yeah, we're not talking about, you know, critics that are gonna say, you know, they're gonna find whatever they don't like because it's not like fucking the Maltese Falcon and criticize it. But specialized media was split up, if you can see. It wasn't like, you know, the praise. Even back then it was split up. And I'm gonna read you some of the conclusions. Ghost is only worth your while if you watch anime strictly for the animation, because that's all it offers. All flesh, no substance. This is the specialized fucking people. This is like the Asian girl that fucking did the manga shit or whatever. You know, the articles I sent. It's not like she didn't know what the fuck she was talking about. Even she could see the flaws in what's the guy's name? Mamoru Oshii's vision, which you know, Shiro Masamune also saw, like the lightheartedness and that way that it didn't make the fucking world feel so heavy, so overwhelmingly heavy. In the sense that it's not that we cannot deal with the ideas and the context of the story. It's just not an agile story. It doesn't makes us feel the story, it just tells the story, and that has been a big problem with most of the different iterations of Ghost in the Shell you accept, but for some fucking reason, even though it's very similar to the fucking Scarlett Johansson movie, you can accept that one even though you haven't even fucking watched it. And you go as far as to make the assertion it doesn't make justice to the world, when it's basically the same fucking criticism I hear today that I hear 21 years ago. Same fucking criticism. And I get it from people who, you know, don't like the franchise, or are not into, like I said, you have to create a language and the inside joke. You already bought the inside joke, but critics have bought the inside joke, and I think that's why they. And then even my own fucking words, in the sense that some critics didn't like it, and some critics hate it, and it's been a very divisive. But my thing is, the divisiveness between fans is what surprises me the most, because I'm not gonna say I'm the most hardcore Ghost in the Shell guy, but I do know it and I do like it. And it amazes me that you cannot explain to me what you think is the void. Like when I think of the film is not perfect. It has massive flaws in some departments. Like some of the flaws I would actually attribute because it was staying faithful, so fucking faithful to the OVA. While I think the best version of Ghost in the Shell, because there are a lot of versions of Ghost in the Shell, would be standalone Complex, and I think you've said that much yourself. I think the first problem was picking that particular version of Ghost in the Shell, the OVA. because the OVA itself wasn't that perfect. It was a thing. It was popular, but it wasn't over. It wasn't like the fucking Avengers. Not even like in its own fucking microverse of people who actually were manga journalists back in the day. In fucking magazines advertising the fucking thing. So it's not a biased thing. If anything, commendations for their journalism in Wizard, which they always were criticized for. I don't know why, because they weren't hero and Mark fucking Wade wasn't amazing hero. And Mark Wade wasn't writing the fucking articles. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. The thing is, man, you have to, I think it's a low point in your career to do something like that, because a lot of people respect you because you actually do have strong opinions on stuff, and very accurate opinions of stuff, I think you're talking out of the fanboy. And we all have fucking fanboys inside of us, but most of us do not, make a living out of fanboying. I would say neither do you, because you're a respected guy for a reason. And I would like you to reconsider your position. Like, I actually went looking for your review of the thing because I want to, it interested me, the division of opinions. And I couldn't say, like, I couldn't find a fucking actual review from you. So that's the first thing. I don't know if you actually watched it or not. I did find your trailer rant, which I think it was low point and it was dumb because it was made with no actual arguments, and I have all the arguments in the world to make like the points you're defending there. I can disprove them like right here, like factually. Or whatever. I'm just a fucking white with an iPad ranting, so I'm not gonna go point by point what you made. You basically said it was the word of the spirit of Ghost in the Shell. Mamu Shiro would say the fucking OVA you're defending was the void of the spirit of Ghost in the Shell. And I'm saying like he has the ultimate word because he hasn't controlled the franchise in a lot of a lot of the times, and for better or worse, the most known version of Ghost in the Shell is the OVA. There's even people who claim to be fans that don't know there's even more stuff beyond the fucking OVA, because the OVA was like, as I'm saying, if you were a teenager in the fucking 90s, the OVA, like, it was like, dude, like, it was, dude, like, that dude moment, that if you were underage, you fucking went to someone's house who had, like, their parents gone away for the weekend and you watched that shit. We were like cynic edgelords. That's where all the fucking edgelords in their 30s today from the internet come from. And yeah, it's not like. Let me make this point. Manga anime was already so fucking big. Like, you could get, like, I fucking got mine at Tower Records. It's not like it was like, oh, you just watch it on the internet. The internet wasn't even. It was the 56K era where you got like the images going like this. And I do remember like functionally, like I was very into like you have the internet exploding, you have cyberpunk exploding all at the same time. Like Matrix was like the peak. And Matrix was like 3 years after this. So this didn't came from a boy. This wasn't like, as I already explained, there's a lot of context. I think you have to take into consideration, and some critics, other critics that don't even know what they're talking about, have to take into consideration. It's a difficult thing to review if you want to go like, there's stuff I would consider a miss that people who like the OVA actually cheer for, and I could understand that, and I would be like, I'll be willing to be more neutral about those kinds of things because they are respecting, the source material they chose for it. I can make an argument that was the bad decision. You're making the argument that you like the source material they chose. So this is my argument. It was not that fucking original. It wasn't that fucking complex, and if anything, adaptation wise, the movie works pretty good. Like it excels. I would say it excels adapting the OVA. The overall thing, I would say no. They have better better reference for the movie. And, yeah, they could have chosen better things. But overall, I think the movie is decent, and it's not a train wreck like Dragon Ball Z. And I don't know why you're making a big fucking tantrum. And all the fucking anime. Oh, don't get me started. Everyone, when they wanna make a Western version of, why Hollywood makes a Western version of Ghost in the Shell? Because it was fucking big in the West, you fucking moron. That's why. And I'm sorry I called you moron, but you yourself are saying it was praised, it was mainstream. Why would they make a fucking adaptation of something that was praised? Not really praised, it was popular, more than praised. Something that was popular, something that, was all over the place when we were kids. Probably some guy, some exec that, whatever studio is making it, grew up with that shit and has a story like mine. Like, they remember the adventure of watching Ghost in the Shell when nobody was looking. And it was like a fun time. And it was an experience. Like, anime is a very visual experience. Just like Blade Runner is a visual experience, and you make the comparison yourself. Yeah, they are trying to adapt more than the complex stories that you cannot make a blockbuster fucking movie about complex ideas which sound more like a documentary. As you yourself know by reading this, it's more tell than show. It actually works pretty well. Like, I would edit the first scene, the beginning scene. Another thing you were bitching about, the reference to the when Motoko always comes from top of the building. You see, it's the beginning. Here it's the end of the first chapter. Yeah, I mean, the whole scene, it's like the first chapter. But so what? They didn't adapt it wrong. They just made... if anything, what I found interesting in the fucking movie, and this is not a spoiler because it's right at the fucking beginning, visually, I think they were a step further. Visually, and that's the big fucking merit this one have as well. Visually, it did go a step further. And it took the influence it needed to take, and it ran with it, and it ran further than even the anime. The anime, as good as it was visually, it was just like the story, just like the acting, very middle ground. Since these people are not emotional, there's as much as beautiful as the fucking imagery is, you're not getting a lot of variation tonally. The movie doesn't do that a lot either, but it tries. And I would blame it on the thing that they want to go with the voice of this Ghost in the Shell. Not light-hearted manga, not the more complex and more thought out standalone complex. And I think you have to at least watch the film and be fair to it, knowing that some of the points you made about the trailer were flat out wrong and demonstrably wrong. And from a place of fanboyism more than from a place of a serious critic that I consider you to be, man. Anyway, that's all I had to say. This was a very fucking difficult video to make, not because all the fucking research I made. If you, like, good God, I had to dig fucking ton of fucking magazines. I don't want to think about putting them back to where they belong. But also, I don't know why I had like so many technical issues this time around. I don't know, like, I fucked in the first take, there was a second take where my fucking iPad just fucked up. And I had to do this a third time. It's the first time I deal with YouTuber shtick, and I don't even consider myself a real YouTuber. I just ran the fucking internet like I always do. It's just easier this way, you know. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching. And Digibro, I like your shit. Reconsider your fanboy strike, preemptive strike of the film. Even if you don't like the film, just tell me why you didn't like in actual, journalistic in an actual journalistic sense, not just like, oh, I'm a fanboy and my shtick is always gonna be better.